Maple syrup production at Stony Point Center begins when we tap the trees. This usually occurs in late February or early March, depending on the weather each year. We tap both sugar maples and Norway maples because their sap has a higher sugar content compared to other types of maple trees, and there are several of them on the property here. To properly tap a maple tree, we use a cordless drill to make a hole in the tree that is about 3.5 feet off the ground and 1.5 inches deep. The diameter of the hole depends on what size tap is used. After drilling, we lightly hammer the tap itself into the hole until it fits firmly. Then we hang a bucket from the hook on each tap and place the lid on top of the bucket. Normally, this would be the last step in the tapping process, but here at Stony Point Center, we do one more thing. We give each tree a big hug to show our appreciation and gratitude for the trees here and the sap they give us.
Once the trees are tapped, the sap will begin to flow when the weather conditions follow a particular pattern. Sap flows best when temperatures go below freezing at night and then rise above freezing during the day for several consecutive days. The sap drips from each tap, one drop at a time, and eventually the buckets hanging from the trees fill up. Maple sap is clear and looks more like water than anything else, which surprises a lot of people. On warmer days, when the sap is flowing strong, we might have to empty each bucket twice, once in the morning and once again in the afternoon. On colder days, the sap may flow more slowly and freeze in the bucket. On these days, we may not collect sap at all. Members of the Community of Living Traditions, the multi-faith community here at Stony Point Center, help gather the sap and haul it to 2 large barrels where it is filtered and stored until we have enough to make a batch of syrup.
The syrup making process begins once we start boiling the sap. This is a 2-part process that begins outdoors with a wood fire and ends in our commercially certified kitchen. Stony Point Center's chief engineer helped us convert an old 55-gallon steel barrel into a homemade evaporator. We build a fire in the chamber, use a fan from an old microwave to force air through the chamber, and the stovepipe at the end allows the air to escape and the fire to burn efficiently. We have 3 steam table pans that fit over the top of this contraption that are filled with sap. Once the sap starts to boil, it changes color. It starts out clear and then turns to a light amber before eventually becoming a darker, richer hue. We usually boil somewhere between 50 and 100 gallons of sap in a day, adding sap little by little to the boiling pans, constantly soaking the fire with wood, and scooping out the foamy scum that rises to the top of the sap as it boils. At the end of the day, what began as 1 or 2 barrels full of clear sap has now become a dark, rich liquid that is not quite maple syrup yet and fits into 1 or 2 large stock pots. Many people don't know that it takes 30 to 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup.
The final step in the process is finishing the syrup in the kitchen. It's easier for us to do this on a stove rather than outdoors on the fire because we have more control over the heat in the kitchen. We continue to boil the liquid in the pots down, and as we do, we monitor the temperature, knowing that once the liquid is 7.5 degrees hotter than the boiling point of water, we have syrup. What's interesting is that once this temperature is reached, the liquid usually erupts in a foamy boil that signals us to turn the heat down and begin the bottling process. When the syrup is finished, we pour it through a 2-part filter and into a coffee percolator so we can keep it warm. Then we open the spout, fill the bottle, and twist on the cap. We save a little syrup from each batch in a jar so it can be grated. Once the syrup in that jar cools, we ladle it into a small glass container that comes with a grading kit and compare it to the color standard to judge the grade. The syrup is now bottled and ready to be served in the dining room or purchased by a loyal Stony Point Center supporter. And that's it. From tap to sap and boil to bottle, this is how we make maple syrup at Stony Point Center.